Hey everybody, welcome to the Outdoor Line podcast. Today I've got with me longtime family friend, Brent Bernhardt. We've known each other for a long time now, and he's a big bird hunter. So I've known you always as quail hunter.
Yep.
And you've just recently gotten kind of back into waterfowl.
I did.
So let's talk about quail hunting. So with me personally, I've never been quail hunting.
Right.
I know some guys that do like the game farm thing and shoot some quails, and I know some guys that out west shoot quail and pheasant, and it looks cool, and I don't know that much about it.
It's a lot of fun. You know, I started probably, I would know I was 14 years old when I started. Matter of fact, we would go goose hunting with Roger Miller and Danny Miller over at Swan Lake, and then on the way back, we would quail hunt. I didn't appreciate it like I should have back then because there was a lot of birds.
I'll say that was the good old days,
That
right?
was the great days. You just went out and had a dog, and his dogs were great. But you went out and you always found birds. And, you know, in the last good number of years, the bird population has declined pretty bad, substantially. So it's gotten a little bit tougher.
Sure.
My bird hunting actually evolved from hunting with guys that had dogs, a lot of different kinds, and a lot of different styles of how they did it. But it got to where I left home and I was able to get a dog. I started out actually with Brittany's.
Okay.
Because I wanted a dog that was, you know, pretty close to you when you hunted. They're awesome dogs. The problem is when the bird population declined, you had to have a dog that was out there pushing and trying to find quail.
Sure, okay.
Many times, you know, in the last, probably 15 years, I've hunted, 3 hours and not pushed a bird. And that's pretty sad when you do that.
Yeah, that takes, you got to really want it to keep going back. You know, a lot of people hunting, if they get out and don't have any luck like that, it's like, well, I ain't going to go.
And it's a lot of walking, and people get tired of that, and it's hard on your dog. But, I remembered it as a kid growing up in Macon, you'd drive 2 blocks, and you'd see 24 of pointing dogs in people's backyards and their kennels and things like that.
So a lot of people were doing it back then.
Absolutely.
There were a lot of birds.
A lot of birds.
With the decline of the bird population, there's also a huge decline in hunters.
Right. Decline in hunters and decline, in our area, specifically dogs. You just don't see a lot of people that have pointing dogs.
Right, yep.
But I've been pretty lucky. Right after when I got on the highway patrol, I was assigned over in Monroe County in Paris, Missouri, and I became really good friends with a vet over there that was into bird dogs big time. And he made fun of me because I had Brittany's. He was a big pointer guy, and the guys that he ran with were field trialers. I've never played that game. I think it's a cool game, but I've never played that game. And he convinced me that I needed to get into the pointer line of things, and I bought or actually had a guy give me a very well-bred. My first pointer was a very well-bred dog. And she was doing really well, and almost 2 years old, got a twist in her intestine. I had to put her down.
Oh, wow.
So that was pretty sad. I ended up buying a dog from this vet friend of mine down at Paris, very well bred, and came out of field trial stuff. And he was hard-headed, terribly hard-headed. And Danny Miller, a good friend of mine here in Macon, he's really good at working with dogs. So I spent a lot of time with him, and we got the dog broke. And he obviously was probably, of all my pointers, was the very best that I ever had. He just did everything, point, back, retrieve. He was a lot of fun to be around, and I killed a lot of birds over him. So
and a lot of time spent as well.
A lot of time.
To find a lot of birds.
Yeah, obviously, and and back when Ben was around, that's what his name was. There were good numbers of birds. The problem with birds, and I've thought a lot about this over the years, is that people are trying to put one thing to say what is causing the bird population to decline, and I don't think you can do that.
I think it's a death by 1,000 cuts. Isn't that what they say?
Exactly right.
Like there's a lot of factors that go into it.
There is, and I think it boils down to a couple things that really hurts them pretty bad. Number one is farming practices. I've lost a lot of, not a lot, but I've lost several really good places that I've hunted for years because they've pushed out fence rows.
Pushed out fence rows, or started
Ditches.
row cropping what used to not be row
Right.
cropped, or
Yeah,
stuff like that.
and you can't fault these guys from doing that. That's their livelihood, and
Sure.
but it is pretty sad to go to a place that that you bird hunted for several times, and were successful, and you go there and there's just not anything.
Right.
But and I also think predation has something to do with it.
I
the
think
predators.
so too. Sure.
There was a lot of people that coon hunted in Macon County, and they were making pretty good money doing it. And I think now that although we have a few people that are still coon hunting and doing the predator stuff, it's not like it was. And we all know that we got oodles and gobs of coons running around.
Yep, and I think you can compare quail to turkeys in that aspect. Ground nesting
Absolutely.
bird, and a lot of the blame's put on predators as well for those, just like nest predators, and even bobcats and coyotes.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know if coyotes get after quails much,
I think they're opportunistic.
but bobcats, I'm sure do.
Sure, I think they come across the quail's nest and they're gonna,
Absolutely.
they're gonna raid it, and it's not good. And this year, we've happened to have a pretty good, I think a pretty good nesting cycle this spring. I've seen probably more birds this year than I have in a number of years.
Yeah, I've actually heard about some people seeing some, and I myself have seen a couple of coveys, which is not normal.
Right. Well, I've seen a good number. I keep a journal, and comparing it to even last year, it's substantially better.
Really good.
Yeah.
That's good news.
Absolutely, very good news.
Never wrong.
Pheasants, there's a few pheasants around. I've had some pretty good luck with them as well.
How we were talking about the good old days with quail hunting. Was pheasants similar back then too?
Well, actually, pheasants really didn't get kicked off until probably, I don't know, probably in the early 80s, late 70s.
Okay.
They started releasing them north Missouri. It used to be when they first opened pheasant season up in Missouri, you had to hunt north of Highway 6.
Okay, I think I've heard that. That's right.
And
Okay.
then there was hunting in South Missouri as well for
Okay.
pheasants. We happened to have a friend back in those days. I didn't have a dog, and we'd just go up and walk, and we'd kill one every once in a while. It was a novelty to get to kill a pheasant. It was really kind of cool just to see one,
Right, yeah, I can count on both hands how many pheasants I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Just out in the wild, just driving around or
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, there's
might see a few.
pockets. You'll find pockets around, even locally, that there's a pretty good number of birds, and I think I've taken 4 this year.
Cool.
And, so it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would love to get my hands on one. I had intentions this year to stop in Kansas and try to find a couple, and it didn't happen. I was going to take my dog, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
But
You
might
need
try
to
that
do it.
next
You
year.
really do, because it's a rush to see those pheasants, and the noise they make when they get up. and
Right.
It's just really cool.
Yeah, I'm sure that is. It's on my to-do list. I'll get that done.
You need
next
to
year
do
or
it.
two for sure.
Your dog would handle them really well.
I think so too. I think so my dog Timber's excellent at staying close.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we take off walking through the wood, through timber when it's tight quarters, she stays really close. Sometimes behind me,
Yeah,
which
that's
isn't
okay.
preferable, but it's better than her running off and going
Sure.
crazy, But when we're in open ground or walking down a clear path, like 20 yards, maybe 25,
That's perfect.
she goes and stops and looks back at me, lets me catch up, takes off a little further. It just never gets out. And I've always thought, like, that'd be good for bird hunting. I mean, if I can get her to get her nose on the ground and smell around, like, that's going to be perfect.
Now, if you would hunt with my pointer, you would probably be a little bit more critical about that. My pointer sometimes is 100, 150 yards away.
Really?
Yeah, but, they're supposed to, when they find birds, they're supposed to stay.
Sure.
And it's all wonderful when they do that. But, things happen. The birds start moving. The dog gets a little bit nervous. And, it's not fun to be walking up to a dog that's on point 85 yards away, and you're trying to get up there to them, and all of a sudden you see the birds or the pheasant get up in front of them.
Right.
That's pretty disheartening.
Right.
But it happens.
So when you do see a dog go on point, are you rushing? Like, are you like, we got to get up here? Or you
No,
just take your time?
I used to. I used to be a person. I wanted to get up there and I wanted to kill birds. My thought about bird hunting or hunting in general has kind of changed over the years. To me, it's all about the dog.
Right.
It's all about the dog. There's nothing more exciting, whether you're a quail hunter or a waterfowl guy, to see your dog perform and do what they're supposed to do.
Yep.
I mean, that's the best. So you kill 6 birds and you bring them home and you dress them and you throw them in your freezer. It's nothing like the memory that you have of your dog actually doing what they're supposed to do.
Right. I would agree with that. It's new for me this year, seeing a dog work and do something that you trained it to do or that someone trained it to do. It's added a whole different level of appreciation for the outdoors, and it's a whole nother new hobby to me. Like, working with my dog is now an outdoor activity.
Right. And you had Bailey Small on one of your podcasts, and you talked a little bit about training, and it's a lot of work. A lot of people think, well, okay, I bought this dog, and it's out of hunting lineage. Put it in a pen. I tell it to come. It comes, and then you just go out hunting. And there's way more to that.
Yep, there is. There's a lot more.
And there's a difference between training a pointing dog in comparison to a waterfowl dog.
Absolutely.
So.
Yep, and I will say, I'm probably guilty of this. Like, my dog's not a polished expert dog, and it never will be, but it does what I want it to.
Exactly.
You could show it to a professional trainer, and he'd be like, "Oh, that dog's terrible," maybe, and that's fine. I don't care. My dog's going to get birds.
And I learned that a long time ago. You have to be happy with your dog's performance. I've hunted with guys before that had dogs that made mine look pretty bad. I've also hunted with a lot of guys that had dogs that I was like, oh my, I don't know that I'd feed that dog tonight. But
that was always one of my fears with getting a dog. I knew I would enjoy it, and I knew I'd want to take it hunting, but I've hunted with some dogs that were bad. That, I'm not going to say they ruined the hunt, but they were taking the fun out of it. Like, listen to their owners yell at them, or the dog's breaking and messing up birds or whatever. And I've always had that fear of having the dog that wasn't going to perform well.
Right.
And so this year we kind of eased into it and told my buddy, I said, well, she deserves to come back, doesn't she? And she said, oh yeah, she did pretty good. So
yeah, I've saw your videos and talked to you about her. She's doing a really good job.
So it's felt good just to know that I got a dog that my buddies want me to bring hunting.
Yeah. I know. I just thought of something, but when that bin dog I told you about was my very best pointing dog, when I was breaking him to be steady, a friend of mine called me one day and said, hey, I'd like to come bird hunting with you. And he just moved into town. He was another highway patrolman, and he'd bird hunted a lot. So I didn't think it'd be any big problem. So we got out to this farm, and my dog goes down a fence row and goes on point. And I thought, okay, this is cool. And all of a sudden, his dog starts running down that fence line. Well, you train your dogs to back. The pointing dogs, they back. You train them that when they see another dog on point, they stop and they simulate a point, and they honor. Well, this dog didn't. It jumped right over the top of my dog, right into a covey of birds. And I kind of panicked because I'd really been working my dog pretty hard on that. And I turned to him and I said, your dog doesn't honor other dogs? And he said, I don't know. I've never hunted with anybody else before. So, you got to be careful about that sometimes too.
Yeah. I've been thinking about that too. Like, I don't know how my dog would do around another dog. Probably get distracted, want to play. She's pretty playful, but
yeah, labs kind of are. But I think that she's played the game and hunted enough with you that I think you'd be okay.
Yeah, and we might. I want to try it with her probably next year before I get to try it. But it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it will be. But yeah, no, the pointing dog stuff has been really fun. I kind of transitioned a little bit this year, so to speak.
Yep.
I'd really been thinking about this for a couple of years, and I normally run have two dogs, and I had a pointer last year that had some age on her and had some health issues. I knew it was going to be her last year. I got her through the season, but I knew that I was probably going to have to put her down at some point, and I ended up doing that, sadly enough, in February, and I started thinking about a black lab. I'd been thinking about having a black lab for many, many years. I've had friends that have had them that used them for quail hunting and for duck hunting and all these different things. Plus, they're just a really nice dog to have around.
Yeah, they're good companions.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, absolutely. So I got, as I mentioned earlier, I think that if you look for a mom and dad that's a good hunter, good background, I think that gives you a kickstart.
Right, a little head start on having a good hunting dog.
So I did a bunch of research and really didn't come up with anything. And another friend of mine who was also searching for a black lab found a guy over north of Kansas City that had been in the business for a long time. He's a trainer. He also guides up in South Dakota, or did. He's actually sold his business and his kennel this summer late. And talked to him about a litter of puppies. I wanted a female. He didn't have a female available.
Of course.
So I wanted a dog that I could, here's the thing with quail season. We talked about that, but, it starts November 1 in Missouri.
Right.
And usually November 1, everything's green and it's warm. And then 2 weeks into quail season, you have Missouri's firearms deer season.
Right. Which used to be 10 days, and now it's like
100.
Yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot of rifle seasons anymore.
It's a lot of it. And I don't bird hunt during firearm season for safety aspect of me and my dog. And a lot of people that I hunt on, they deer hunt. So they don't want you out there running around, and I completely understand it. But as you mentioned, they have, opened the season up for extended time, and by the time deer season's over, the weather's really pretty good. Perfect for quail season usually.
Right.
But then in Missouri, we all know that what happened this year, right after deer season, we got 7.5 inches of snow.
Right.
Which puts a smash on your season.
Sure.
So I was very thankful when we had the warmer temperatures.
Let me ask, just because I don't know, what is the perfect weather for quail hunting?
I like stuff. I don't like it where I'm out there sweating, but I like it in the 30s.
Okay.
I don't like a lot of wind. I like.
Sure.
I've hunted in all kinds of stuff, but I like it in the 30s. I don't mind having a little skift of snow on. It seems like the birds, handle better when it's colder. But there's something else you need to think about that too. You don't want to hunt late in the day because you want the birds to get back together.
Okay.
So if you hunt late in the day and bust a covey of birds and they don't get back together and it gets cold, then the birds can freeze to death.
Sure.
So
I did not know that.
Yeah, something to think about.
That's interesting.
So I'm kind of particular about that because I want to go back and get into that
right.
covey of
You're
birds.
a conservationist.
Yes, right.
You want those birds to survive.
Absolutely. You did ask me, do I run up there? Do I hustle up there when my dogs are on point? And the answer to that is no. I don't take my time. I've heard of people saying, I'd walk up to my dog and would smoke a cigarette and watch it, just stand
Really?
there. I don't do that.
Just
of course,
to
I don't
teach
smoke.
patience or whatever.
Yeah, I just take a leisurely walk up there and get up there. And if I'm hunting with more than one people, more than one person, I try to get them in position so that they get a shot.
Okay.
Doesn't always work out.
Right.
But a lot of times it does. And then, your reward is, obviously if you can knock a bird down or two, the dog is supposed to go retrieve it. The dog that I have right now is not a real strong retriever, the pointing dog that I have. So at any rate, you got to make them do it. And obviously if you got one down, they're hard to find.
I'm
so
sure
you want that dog to find them. You
Right.
don't want to just kill something and leave it there.
Absolutely.
So
So I asked about the perfect weather conditions. As far as dogs and being able to smell, isn't there probably when's it too cold? Can it get too cold to affect that?
Yeah, if it's in the single digits, I don't hunt.
Okay.
A lot of the reason for that is it's a little bit harder on the dog, but it's much more harder on the quail.
Okay.
Because you
don't want to stress them out and at the
right
coldest days of the year.
Right. But I've had days that I've hunted that the scenting conditions are really strange because whether the scent is rising up from the ground. Sometimes you have dogs. I've hunted one day and your dog was smelling birds like crazy. And the next day, the same dogs were running over the top of them. So,
and
sending
flushing them before they
Yeah.
before they even smell them.
Yeah.
Go on
So,
point. Okay.
a lot has to do with, humidity and things like that. And
More to it than we understand.
absolutely. Yeah. But it's scenting conditions are just one of those things that you just never know. The other day I took a kid in high school that actually watches my dog some and his dad out, and he was able to kill a pheasant and a couple quail, and scenting conditions were pretty decent.
Okay.
But as the morning wore on, it got a little bit warmer. The scenting conditions were going down, deteriorating pretty fast.
Okay. That's interesting.
It is.
So we were talking about the good old days. What did like a good quail hunt look like back then? Like
Well,
everybody gets a limit?
Yeah, I've heard the old timers say they could tell if they had a good year by the number of quail livers and gizzards that they had froze. I mean, I couldn't fill up a styrofoam cup with
Yeah.
the amount of quail, But yeah, you would go out. The guys around here, back in the day, it was nothing for them to kill a couple hundred quail.
Really?
Danny Miller's dad, he would. Those guys would buy a case of shells or load a case of shells, and it wasn't a good season if they didn't shoot all of them. It's just crazy. But it was nothing back then, as I remember it when I started. And you would have talked to Danny's dad, who would have said, "Yeah, it's not like it used to be back when I was growing up."
Of course.
But I remember my memories of quail hunting were, when I hunted with those guys, you were into quail, and 3 or 4 coveys pretty easy a day.
Okay. Yeah.
I've had days that I have hunted in the last 10 years that I'd hunted 3 hours and never found a bird.
Yeah. And that'd be tough.
It's tough.
But I just can't imagine getting on that many birds and killing that many birds.
Oh, it's
a
just
year.
crazy.
It'd be so addicting.
Yeah.
I'd want to do it all the time.
Oh, you would.
If you truly
And,
got into birds that often and got to see your dog work that often.
And that's what makes it a good dog.
Repetition.
Absolutely. Getting out there. And those dogs, you and I were talking before we started this, how your dog made one retrieve today and was wanting to make another one. Well, pointing dogs and retrievers, same thing. They want to do that. I mean,
yeah, I've just watching my dog this year learn. The more we go, the better she's getting. Like, I'm not doing any training. It's just the repetition, the being in the woods. My dog's learning on her own.
Right.
She's figuring things out. She learns where to sit in the blind.
Yep.
How to hide in her dog blind if we're hunting that way. She's just getting better on her own, and it's really neat to see.
I had the vet down in Paris was close friends with a guy by the name of Farrell Miller, who in the field trial world of things is like the Michael Jordan.
Okay.
Farrell lives down in Kentucky. He's 90 years old. He's hardworking, but he has had more field trial dogs win the national championship. It's amazing. His lineage is called the Miller, their Miller bloodline. His lineage it's crazy. So I had the opportunity of meeting him and actually becoming friends with him.
Okay, cool.
And I, the first time that I really visited with him much, I said, "You probably don't want to visit with me much because I'm not a field trialer. I'm a wild bird dog hunter." And he said, "No." He said, "That's what it's all about. It's a wild bird stuff." But I asked him, I said, what's the biggest thing that you can do for your dog to make it a good dog? And he said, birds, and more birds. He said, let them run through them. He said, they got to figure it out. And the problem for people like me and you, we don't have that opportunity unless we buy a bunch of tame birds.
Right.
These guys put out birds. They're in it every day. So these dogs, their drive just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so we kind of train them around here a little bit with tame birds and pigeons and things like that. But the real test is getting out into those wild birds.
Sure. So have you done this year some tame birds as well?
Yeah, I've gone down to a local game farm
Okay.
A couple times. One with a friend that he's a retriever guy, and he wanted to work his retriever with my retriever. Of course, I knew in the retriever business, so I was kind of feeling my dog out a little bit too.
Right.
And then this past week, I went down there and we put chuckers out and some pheasants, and it was a lot of fun. You
Right.
know.
I've never been to a game farm, but
Yeah.
it'd be fun just to
Yeah.
do some shooting and to see some dog work.
Yeah, and that might be a good thing for you to do sometime after the season. Is
Right. Just there's
Get
not
with
a
some-
lot of opportunity, kind of like you said. I mean,
Right.
there may be a few pieces of private that might hold some birds, but
Yeah.
odds are someone can hunt it already.
Right.
And then there's not probably a whole lot of public that holds a lot of birds, but
Yeah.
there's probably some here and there.
Yeah, there are, and some of our local conservation areas look really good, but for some reason they don't hold the birds, and I don't know. I don't think it's because of they're over hunted. I don't think that. I don't know why.
I would agree. Some of those CRP fields and stuff on conservation that kind of just let grow up to me looks good.
Yeah,
But that doesn't mean everything.
yeah.
Right?
And I found several birds. I haven't hunted any of those areas this year, but in years past, I've found a good number of birds on some of them.
Sure. Have you ever went up north to find pheasants?
Years ago, Danny Miller and I went up to Iowa is when I had that Ben dog.
Okay.
And we went up there and we pheasant hunted one day. I've been in Kansas years ago and quail hunted a couple times. Didn't have the best of luck, but there again, we were hunting public ground. And, if you don't know private people, you're competing against a lot of people.
A lot of other guys out there trying to do the same thing that you are. That's right.
So most of my hunting is just local.
Okay. So let's talk about your new dog, Dolly.
Okay.
Got her last
May.
This spring.
Yeah. So I did finally find this guy, and my reason behind getting the Labrador was I had a lot of reasons. Number one, I wanted a dog that I could dove hunt with. I wanted a dog that I could quail hunt with, pheasant hunt with, and then duck hunt.
You want a dog does it all?
Everything. A universal dog.
Sure.
All on one in one pocket. But I didn't know if I would get that, and obviously I was a little bit nervous because training a retriever, having a couple good friends that are retriever trainers, it's different training than just a pointing dog. So the guy over near Kansas City called me one day and said, "Hey, would you be interested in a 1.5-year-old female?" And he said, I guided with her a little bit this year, 60-some days pheasant hunting. So I went over and looked at her, and, of course, I fell in love with her the minute I saw her. He showed me what she'd done, and, of course, he's a retriever trainer, so she was pretty polished when I got her. And brought her home and had her all this summer, kind of get to know her a little bit and her quirks and my quirks, and I thought, well, here we go. So saying all that, I found out that she is a pointing lab. She's pointed wild coveys of quail. She's pointed pheasants, wild pheasants. She's also retrieved ducks, one dove. Didn't have a very good dove season this year. I should have come over with you.
Yeah, I had a pretty decent season.
You did.
I got to kill a few. So.
But yeah, one week, I took her duck hunting with a friend. I got invited. That's a bad thing because I don't have a good place to duck hunt.
Right.
But I took her with a friend, and we were able to kill 11 ducks that morning. And she retrieved every one of them in some really cold pit water.
Sure.
Yeah. And that's when you know. So I've been told that's when you know if you got a good retriever or not, if they'll swim in that cold water.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Mine loves it. So
yeah, you're good to go.
Good.
So Dolly did really well with that. The very next day, I took her to the game farm. That's where I found out that she pointed. Did
the guy you bought it from give any hints that she did point?
He did. He told me, he said, I've guided with her, and he had 5 other personal dogs that he took to South Dakota. And he told me, he said, Dolly points. And I said, points? And he said, not like your pointing dog. And I said, oh, okay. So I really didn't know what to expect, to be honest with you. I watched a couple of YouTube videos of people that had pointing dogs, and most of your retrievers that I've seen on videos were flushing dogs. I mean, you can kind of tell when they're getting birdie, and you said your dog's like 20 yards away from you. That would be perfect.
Right.
So, at any rate, he told me that, and then I had kind of out while bird hunting, had seen her point in places where we had gotten up birds. And I really didn't think too much about it. But then when I had her down at the game farm, and I obviously saw her do it,
right,
I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. So that day, did that, played that game, and then the very next day I wild bird hunted by myself, and I killed a limit of pheasants, killed 2, and 5 quail. And the best part about her...
That's an excellent day.
Oh, it was I haven't had one of those days for a long time.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I was as proud as I could be. My dogs did a really great job.
How do they do working together?
They do good. The one thing I'm going to have to brush Dolly up a little bit on, and she's gotten better. It was kind of funny at the beginning of the season. These dogs are so smart. These labs are so smart. But at the beginning of the season, she figured out that when my dog was on point, there was something there. So she would scurry right up there and get too close.
Oh, okay.
And I thought, yeah, I'm going to have to worry on her, making her sit and everything. Well, she has figured out now towards the end of the season that if I've got a dog on point, or my pointing dog's on point, she'll stay there.
Okay,
so
really?
she doesn't get too
So
close.
she's learned to back. Is that
Yeah,
the
or
term you
honor.
used? Okay,
Yeah,
honor.
yeah. We need to brush it up a little bit.
Sure, but if she's picking up on it herself,
Oh, yeah.
that should be pretty easy
Absolutely.
to brush up on.
Yeah.
That's
so
interesting.
it's going to be awesome. But yeah, it's been such a delight. These guys that like Bailey Small or Barry Graskowitz, a friend of mine, that are big retriever trainers. The way they do that, and I've gone down, actually worked one training session with Bailey and Barry together. And what they get those dogs to do is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's very impressive.
It is very impressive, and but again, it takes repetition and work. You gotta want to do it, and
Got to invest the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know a lot of people pay to have their dog trained, and I'm okay with that.
Yep, nothing wrong with it.
Nope.
But I'm a DIY guy. I
Me
like
too.
to do things myself, and I kind of want to say, yep, I taught her to do that.
Right.
Just a little more rewarding, I think. And if you got the time, you might as well.
Yeah, and the time that I took, one of the times that I took my dog down when those guys, retriever trainers, were working, got invited to come down there, and my dog was doing what they were doing, running marks and things, and I asked my buddy Barry, I said, well, what do you think of my dog? And he said, it's a black lab. And I'm like, yeah. He said, she knows way more about this game than you do. And I'm like, yep, you're exactly right. But it is a lot of fun. And, the cool thing, I'm not saying that pointers or pointing dogs, you get into German short hairs and they're more of a personal dog, but it's been my experience with pointers, they want a little loving, a little pet on the back, and they're ready to go hunt. They're ready to go do their job. But Dolly, I bring Dolly in every night, when Brenda goes to bed, and I cover up the couch because if you haven't noticed, they shed a lot.
Oh yeah, I know.
Oh my
It's terrible.
gosh, I had no idea.
I let my dog take some naps in here in the man cave. Like, we'll go hunting and it's been a long day and it's cold outside. I'm like, come in here, warm up, take a nap. I know you're tired. And I'll come back and check on her, and she's laying on this double recliner right here. And I say, Timber, you're not supposed to be there. The other day, she just played asleep. Like, she saw me come in and closed her eyes and didn't move
Just
until
like a kid.
I come over and touched her before she moved.
Yeah.
She knew she wasn't supposed to be there, just faking
Well,
being asleep.
most every night, I'll go get Dolly, and I'll open my basement door, and before I can get downstairs, she is on the couch, laying there, just waiting for me to get there.
Right.
But they're just, lovable dogs, and that's what I wanted. I wanted a dog that I could, heck, if I go out crappie fishing, I haven't tried that yet, but I'd like to take her, just with me,
Yep. So here's something to be careful about. I took mine this year bass fishing. Me and my dad and my dog in a 14-foot boat, pretty full, and of course she's walking around, doesn't care that the boat's leaning one way or the other, which that was fun, but we were throwing back some smaller bass, and Dad caught one, and Timber's sitting right next to Dad, and he just tossed it back in the water, and she
went after
head
it.
first, and that pit water's real clear, and I bet she was 4 feet underwater.
Oh my gosh.
Just sunk. And we were laughing. Of course, she come right back up, but her instinct was to go get it.
Go get it.
Kind of
it's funny you mentioned that because Dolly had not been hunted on waterfowl at all, period.
Okay.
Been trained, but not, they throw the dead ducks out and, that sort of thing, but had never really duck hunted. So the first time that I took her, I went to set out some decoys and I actually went to pick them up. And she hopped in the boat with me. Never been in a boat before, and I'm paddling to get the decoys, and next thing I know, she decides she wants out. So she just jumps out of the boat, goes completely underwater, and I'm thinking, oh, this is ridiculous.
Right.
And she swims beside the boat as I'm picking up the decoys. They're hilarious.
Yep, I get some pretty good entertainment out of mine. Just like today, we were setting up decoys. There was probably 15 yards of pretty solid ice that we ended up breaking through it, but it held us for just a little bit. In the end, it was some real thin ice out there, and it was at most 1.5 feet deep. Seemed like maybe with the mud, probably 2 feet deep. But every time I walk out to take decoys out there, she just follows me, trucking through the ice, just like wherever you go, I'm going. That's kind of how she is.
I don't claim to be a dog expert in any stretch of the imagination, and most of the information that I've got about retrievers has come from people like Barry Graskowitz or Bailey Small.
Sure.
Both big duck hunters. Barry's a huge duck hunter, has done it for many, many years. He's been training dogs back when his dad trained dogs. So very knowledgeable. But, one of the key things he told me is he said, you'll know if you got a good one, if they'll break ice and they'll get in that cold water. He said the first retrieve is always a good one until they figure out it's cold.
Right.
And it's the second one that
decide
you'll
if
find.
they want to do it again.
Yeah,
or
if
not.
we want to do it again. But your dog has, and my dog has the drive. They want to do it.
Yeah,
So.
it's something I've noticed, or I feel like, is my dog trusts me. Like if she doesn't know where the bird's at, I mean, she's looking at me.
Right.
Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, she looks to me for answers, it seems like. And if I send her in the ice, I mean, I think she just trusts me.
Yeah.
She knows that that's okay.
That's a really good point, because I think trust in a dog, I've been around dogs that were really well broke, particularly pointing dogs, but they were pretty mechanical. There wasn't really a bond between the owner and the dog. That owner's
Sure.
like, yeah, I got a dog and I hunt with it. But I think if you have, a bond with your dog, taking it for a truck ride,
Yep.
Bringing it downstairs that's one reason why I bring her in of a night is, I get a little hands-on.
Yep.
She knows to trust me.
Yep.
And
I think it makes a difference.
and I think it was a big difference because I didn't get her as an 8-week-old puppy. She had lived somewhere else for a year and a half.
I wondered about that, how
Yeah.
that would affect it. Just not having her since she was a pup. Building that trust would be a little bit behind,
Right.
Instead, if you had her as a pup, but it seems to be like it hasn't been a
Well,
problem.
it's kind of funny because the day that I went to look at her, he jumped her out of the back of a dog box, and she immediately ran to me. And I petted her, and she immediately went back to him. And, he's the boss.
Sure.
And wherever he went, so she was like that when I brought her home, but things made her nervous when I would bring her inside. She would sit on the couch and she would just sit there and pant. She didn't know what that was all about,
Right.
and she didn't fully trust things. Now she makes herself at home,
Right.
So it takes a while with any dog to build that trust, and build the thing that they want to work hard for you. You're trying to do the best for them as
Right.
well.
Absolutely. So with my pup, she was little. I started out bringing her in this man cave. Just hang out in here. When she was little, I'd let her sleep on my lap. I'd sit in the recliner, watch TV. She'd sleep on my lap. Well, she got big enough. I'm like, nah, we got to quit doing this. Like, you're too big to be on my lap. Well, a while back, I lay down in this recliner right here to take a nap. And she was like wanting up. She kind of put her feet up on me. I was like, okay, come here. And she about drags me in here, wants to get on my lap
Sure.
in that recliner. We slept for 2 hours today.
Yeah.
I had a late night hunting and got up early this morning and didn't get a lot of sleep, so we took a long nap today.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, we both
Yeah.
slept for 2 hours in that
Yeah.
chair. It's just funny.
I watched a guy made a post that I bought my retriever from, and of course a lot of his dogs are going to the big people that waterfowl hunt and kill a lot of ducks. They upland hunt. They kill a lot of upland stuff. But one of the things he puts on there is, this dog sleeps inside. This dog sleeps inside. Brenda's not going to let that happen.
Right.
I'm lucky enough to bring her in for an hour or so every night, and I have to vacuum and I have to cover the couch
Sure.
and that kind of stuff, but it's all good. A lot of people don't want that, but I want my dog to be my buddy.
Yep, Bailey and I talked about that. We said, some people say, oh, you can't have a good hunting dog. You bring it in the house. And
Yeah, I don't.
and I disagree.
I disagree too. Bailey's got one that sleeps with him.
Yep, every dog's different,
Yeah.
but
I don't want to sleep with my dog, and
Nope.
Brenda would not let that happen.
no, me either.
So, but
Them labs just shed way too much.
oh, I had no idea.
it's
My daughter's
crazy.
got a golden retriever, and it's the best dog ever. Not a hunting dog, but that dog. You can see like little puffs of fur flying around, and I thought, man, that dog sheds more than anything, until I got a Labrador retriever, and I found out.
You'd think they'd be bald as much hair.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy.
The floor out here is terrible. It doesn't take long. It's
Yeah.
just her hair is all over the place.
Yeah.
And when we're hunting, like, she'll be wet, I'll pet her a good job, and
Yeah.
my hand's just covered.
Oh,
black
I know.
hair. I'm like, dang it.
When you take that vest off of them,
Her vest is full of hair. Yeah.
Yeah. But I've with having a retriever, it's forced me to. I've got a son that loves to duck hunt. The job that he doesn't get to do it all that much. But kind of another reason why I wanted to get a black lab, because I thought, this would be really cool to get to hunt with my son,
Sure.
From time to time, and have a dog that does it. And so yeah, we only got to duck hunt one time together this year, but it was still fun.
Yeah, there'll be more of that to come
yeah.
for sure.
Oh yeah.
Something that's been so useful. I mean, this is what dogs are for, but we've spent years shooting birds, and they'll land out in the middle, and you got to wait for the wind to blow them to where it's shallow enough, or we'll always take a boat with us or a kayak, so just in case we get one that drifts too far out where it's too deep, we can always go get it. And it's been so relaxing to not have to worry about
It's funny you mention that, because the guy that invited me to go duck hunting the day that we killed 11 ducks, his son was with us, and they duck hunt a lot. Every given day they duck hunt. But after Dolly had retrieved a couple ducks, his son said, "I'm sure glad you brought Dolly today." And I said, "Well, I probably wouldn't have been here if I didn't have Dolly." And I said, why are you happy that I brought her? And he said, "Because I'm usually the dog. I'm usually the one that's paddling the boat out. And that particular day, the wind was at her back. So we would kill a duck, and it was blowing across.
Drifting away.
Yeah, so, it was good that we had
and
her.
I kind of assume I know where you guys were hunting at, and there's not much wading to be done.
There is
it's
no wading.
Pretty deep water.
Yeah, it's all deep water.
Yep.
But yeah, so it was good that we had her. And, that was one of those days, it was kind of a test, too, because she had not had the experience,
Right. But what a good feeling to take her first time and she retrieves 11.
I was just proud as I was, when Brandon was born,
right.
almost.
Yep, that's funny. Has she retrieved any doubles? Have you had to?
No, everything we've had have been singles so far.
That's how I've been, too. I've yet to knock down two birds with her. I want to see what she'll do.
Yeah. I will tell you that quail hunting and pheasant hunting, I would have a problem of sometimes not finding a bird. Since I've had Dolly, I have found every bird that we've got. That's so good. So that's also another big bonus, because she likes getting a bird in her mouth.
Yep. I noticed with my dog, just when I was training her, we'd do some water work, and I haven't done a lot, but last winter we did some, and using 2 or 3 dummies and her bumpers, and if they were kind of in a close vicinity, she'd try to grab them both.
Oh, that's cool.
And she never did quite get it, but she'd always try. She'd grab one and go to that next one and maybe push it for just a second and then give up on it. And I'm pretty confident in the right situation with ducks, I think she'd grab 2.
I saw a YouTube video just a couple of weeks ago of a guy hunting a lab, and he had 2 ducks knocked down, and the lab picked up both of them. Yep. I thought that was pretty cool.
It's really you can't train that.
No,
you probably can, but that's something that just comes natural.
Yeah, it does. But they like to pick them up
for sure.
The more, the merrier.
How is Dolly with her drive? Like with Timber, with my dog, I would say she's not a real driven dog. She's laid back. She's lazy. She doesn't get wound up really, but I've not had a drive issue. Like she's never not wanted to go get a bird.
And I think to answer your question, Dolly has a pretty big drive.
Okay.
When I went and the night and observed those trainers and took Dolly down, they were running marks out in a hayfield, different distances, and one of the things that I learned really quick is one of the trainers said, I said, "Man, that dog is amazing." He said, "Well, it ought to be." He said, he's 6 years old, and, he probably picked up 500 ducks last year. He said, "But let me show you a dog that's different than your dog and that dog." And it was a client dog, and he said it has no drive. It just doesn't have the drive. That dog really loved to be petted more than really had the drive of going and picking something up. Yeah. But it did, but you could tell that there was a little bit difference in there.
Sure.
It's kind of like having a field trial bird dog, a bloodline out of a field trial bird dog compared to what, a guy that's just had bird dogs that they call
Just
them
hunt.
meat dogs that you just go out and
Sure.
hunt. You know, they're a little bit bigger going, a little bit bigger challenge. And your dog, I would think, you know, is a better rounded situation because you can control it a little bit better. You know, Dolly's one that you gotta, you know.
Yeah, that's something I like about not being so wound tight and real high drive is
Absolutely.
I can control it, and
Yeah.
she doesn't get out of control.
And for me, fortunately, she'd been trained by a professional trainer,
Sure.
so I can control her.
Sure.
But you know, if I would have bought her as a puppy, you know,
She'd have been a hard one to tame, maybe.
we would have
without
probably been
knowing.
having a little bit different discussion
Sure.
right now. But yeah, it's funny because, you know, pointers are pretty quick, but I guarantee you my lab can outrun that pointer.
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny. So I think I sent you that video of my lab retrieving a goose pretty far out there, running through the water.
Right.
I don't know, it's probably a 70, 80-yard retrieve, and
Which is a big deal.
and 75% of it was water just where she could touch. I mean,
Right.
she kind of stopped and swam a little bit, and then she's back touching, and she was running hard that whole time.
Yeah,
and
I
like
saw
that. That was more drive than
Yeah.
I usually see out of her. It
The
was good.
the videos that I've seen of her, she has plenty of drive.
Yeah. And maybe I don't know the definition of drive, but she's laid back. She's
Yeah.
not
And that's a good thing.
yeah, I think so too. That's what I prefer.
You know, I've had, you know, that Ben dog I was told you about, my best pointing dog. He was out of field trial stuff. He was very, very, very hard-headed. There was two people that could handle him, and that was Danny Miller and me. Anybody else, you couldn't handle him.
Right.
You know, he didn't respect you, but he was hard to train, hard to break. But you know, once he got into that groove with you, you know, he was hands down really good.
Sure.
So, you know, and people will tell you can't put a prey drive or that drive in a dog. You know, it's either they got it or they don't. But it's easier to take it out of them than to try to put it in.
Right. And that's a similar situation. I talked to Danny about my dog and only getting like 20, 25 yards away. And to be honest, I primarily got her to shed hunt with. And
Yeah.
I've got her picking up some sheds.
Right.
Well, when you're shed hunting, 20 yards doesn't do a whole lot. Like, I can find sheds within 20 yards.
Right.
I kind of wanted her to branch out
Right.
and get further. And he said, well, it's a lot easier to push them out than it is to reel them back in.
Yeah. It is, and it's just one of those things. And she will with age. I mean, she's still a very young dog. She's a pup, and with retrievers, I've been told that they really don't start settling down until after they're a little over 2 years old.
Right.
You know, pointing dogs, sometimes it's more than 2 years old. Before they really get set in a thing. But I feel really bad being a dog owner in the fact that, I hunt a lot. I'm fortunate enough to be retired and be able to hunt. I run out of places to hunt.
Sure.
You don't always get into birds, every time as many as you should, that you're doing your dogs justice. So when I hear these guys that are saying, I duck hunt I've got a duck place over at Swan Lake area, and, I kill 100 ducks a year, and I'm thinking, okay, good grief. I've been duck hunting a handful of times this year, and personally, I think I've killed 2 ducks.
Right.
But my dog's been able to retrieve maybe 15.
Sure.
So yeah, it's just one of those things that you have to say, hey, I had fun with them, and as long as you enjoy your dog, and I've been around people that I've never been really upset with people when they had a dog that doesn't behave real well, but it's frustrating.
Yep, it can happen.
Yeah. But I've been
I've seen
around
a few.
people that are pretty opinionated about their dogs, and
Sure.
I've had people scold me for things my dogs have done, but
Right.
you just move on.
I had a really good hunt the other day. Myself and 2 buddies. There were some geese and ducks going in this, greenheads and ducks, which from an aspiring waterfowl hunter, I've always thought the pile pictures of where you kill both is awesome. Like, I've been on good duck hunts, I've been on good goose hunts, but I've never been on one where you kill a lot of both.
Right.
So I was pretty excited to hunt this spot, and we got in there. It was real foggy that day, and it was an excellent hunt. There was quite a few birds flying around. We couldn't get the groups of mallards to work. It'd be like 4 or 6 mallards, and they'd circle us a couple times and look at us pretty hard, and they didn't want to do it, but there was a lot of singles in the air. And I don't know if that had to do with it being foggy or what, but we ended up killing 4 mallard singles and 4 goose singles, and all of them just did it beautifully.
Yeah.
And my dog got to retrieve just about every one of those. We had one goose actually. We had some full bodies set up on the ground kind of out to our right, and then our floaters were out in the water to our left. And this one single come in locked up from a mile high, just come set all the way in, and was going to land with those full bodies on the land. So come in kind of flapping, in 20, 25 yards, real close. And we pulled up to shoot, and he, of course, picked up and kind of started flapping. And I dusted him the first shot. I mean, good shot. And I instantly said, "Heads up, boys."
Coming at you.
He was right on top of us.
Yeah, I've heard of that happening.
And we kind of start shoving each other and like, look out, look out. And that bird landed 4 feet from
No
one
kidding.
of my buddies. Hit in a big, just as heavy as a goose gets. Big old heavy thing. Just, whoom, hit the ground right next to us.
I've heard of people snow goose hunting, that said that they've shot them and they've landed right in the blind with them,
Right. I thought for sure we were going to have to try to catch this thing because it was coming in the blind with us. And I get my 2 buddies over here. My one buddy said, "Yeah, Quentin was getting pretty nervous. He was like shoving me pretty hard to get out of the way."
Yeah. Yeah, that can be fun though. But it's really beautiful to watch the ducks and geese come in when they do it right.
Yeah, I know. Another bird, and this one goose didn't do it as good, and we probably didn't shoot as good. I think my first shot hit it, and then I shot another time, and my buddy shot a time or two, and that bird was still flying. And my third buddy said, "There goes that bird." I was like, "Yeah, I don't know what happened." And I looked back, and that bird was falling. He had already claimed, like, that bird's flying away. And we looked back again, and he was falling. And he crashed, hit the water hard. And he was quite a ways away. And my dog didn't see it. And to be honest, I couldn't quite see it where it was at. And I was like, we'll just get that one later. He'll be over there. And that was banded. We got over there.
I saw the picture of the banded.
We had that
goose.
little boat, and me and my buddy and the dog were in the boat, and we got probably 20 yards from it, and she sees it. And that bird was still alive. He was sitting there with his head up, and I sent her after it. She bailed out of the boat and got a hold of it, and she had it flipped over, and I saw that band. I was like, "You got to be kidding me."
Lucky you.
What are the odds of that? Just the one bird that kind of got away, that we didn't get our hands on right off the bat was banded.
You think about how many birds you have to kill to kill a banded bird. And then you see these guys that have lanyards that are just full of them. You're like,
I know.
That guy's killed a lot of ducks or a lot of geese.
I've killed 2 banded geese in my whole life, and both, I can't believe I killed 2. I mean, it's just dumb luck is all it is.
My shooting sometimes is not the best. I get pretty aggravated at that sometimes. That's a whole different podcast. But yesterday I had 2 shots that I'm just like, I cannot even believe I missed that shot. But
we had similar things this morning. So just this morning we goose hunted, like I said, on some ice. We had a really good hide. I was super happy with our hide, and we hadn't seen. There were some birds roosted on it, which of course they got up when we got there, and we've hunted like that before, and it works sometimes and it doesn't work. Sometimes they come back, they filter back slow. Sometimes they all come back at once, which doesn't work well. But there weren't many birds flying after shooting light this morning, other than the ducks. The mallards were 6-pack of mallards, which come in locked up. Just
how it always
absolutely goes. Beautiful.
Yeah. Got to watch them land.
Yeah, and we did. We enjoyed the heck out of it. It was a great show. And then we had a 3-pack. We heard a honk and turned around, and coming over the treetops, here's these 3 geese locked up. We never saw them flap a wing. Come in behind us, locked up, banked around, get the wind right, and come right in, just sat down perfect into our spread, just like you drew it up.
Yeah.
And 2 of those geese got away, and we're very disappointed in ourselves. I hit mine the first shot for sure. Not where I was a little low. I know what happened. I just rushed it. You pull up, and I think what happens in my head is, well, if them guys shoot way before me, my bird's going to be moving.
Right.
And it's going to be harder to get on him, and I rushed it and shot, and I knocked it down, and I went to shoot him a second time, and that second shell didn't go off. So by the time I looked at my gun, like, I thought it jammed. I thought I was going to be trying to pull a shell out, but it was close, so I jacked that other shell in, and by the time I did that, my bird was in the air and was of course, I had to try. I shot
Sure.
again, but he was too far at that point. And
Yeah.
the third guy, I don't know what he was doing. He missed all 2 or 3 of his shots. And then this one goose we did get knocked down. But sometimes you do great, and sometimes you don't.
I have had days quail hunting for sure that I've gone out, and it's just like you don't miss. And then the very next day you go out, and you're like, I can't hit anything.
Right.
You know, I probably one of the most frustrating days shooting-wise I ever had was years ago with Danny Miller and another friend, and I probably shot a box of shells and, you know, maybe killed 1 or 2 quail, and I was just really frustrated. And at one point they're like, shoot again, Brent, shoot again. You know, but it's still a lot of fun. Whether, again, you know, like we talked at the very beginning, you know, it's all about enjoying your dog and getting out there. And if I miss a quail, the way I look at it, or a duck or anything, you know, well, it gives me another opportunity some other time.
Sure. Yep, that quail's still out there
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
We had 2 pretty memorable waterfowl hunts last year with shooting. It's kind of funny. The first one, me and my buddy Quentin were hunting pond, and these birds come in. They didn't do it excellent, but they did it all right. And we both shot 3 shells, and 3 geese dropped. And he said, I hit all 3 of mine. I said, yeah, I didn't hit anything. And he knocked 3 birds down with his 3 shots, and I never hit a single bird.
Isn't that crazy?
And I'm just like, man, I don't know what happened. And
yeah.
there was one that was like a real gimme, like come in real low or something. And I did let him shoot at that one, so he had the easy shot on that one.
Yeah.
And then another hunt, we were field hunting, cornfield, and we were hunting layout blinds, and these birds weren't wanting to work. They would come and fly over us, and they didn't like something. Well, the last group come in real low. They weren't up. I mean, they were kind of committed way out. And we shot into that group and killed 6 geese.
Oh, wow.
3 shots apiece and knocked down our 6 birds. He said,
wouldn't that have been cool to have timber?
oh, I know. Yeah, I'd have loved to have that. But I didn't. I had her then, but wasn't hunting with her at all. But yeah, what are the odds? 6 birds, 6 shots. I said, we'll never do that again.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
It can be good some days, and it can be
tough.
I
did see some snow geese yesterday.
Did you?
Yeah. They were pretty high, so
Sure.
I guess they're starting. I don't know
migrating.
much about them.
Yeah, I don't either.
So, but you see a lot of guys that have a lot of success doing
you
it.
could get into a lot of retrieves if you got into snow geese hunting. I'm
That'd
sure
be fun. A lot of work and a lot of decoys.
Oh, I know. Yeah. So I got to go last year, kind of a guided thing here, kind of locally. Somebody actually bought it at a silent, like this 2-man hunt at a silent auction at a banquet deal, and they invited me to go with them. And we didn't kill anything, but we did see some birds and almost had some work. It's pretty good. I could see where it'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd have one of those days where you got there and you were killing a whole bunch of them. I could see where you'd want to go back the next day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work like that every day,
No,
I'm sure.
it doesn't. It does not. And that's the same way with duck and goose hunting. I mean, you'll have good days and bad days. Just good days shooting, bad days is shooting.
It's still a good day.
Yeah, it is. I've really enjoyed hunting with my dog. Like we used to have a lab that wasn't a hunting dog though, and I enjoyed being out in the woods with her, but just never trained her to really do anything. And now that I've been working with this dog and just trying to get her to do everything, I mean, she's retrieving ducks and geese, and I've got her picking up sheds, and I'm trying to think of what's next. So
I've thought a lot about that. If I didn't have a dog to quail hunt with or to duck hunt with, I haven't duck hunted really per se for a good number of years. But now that I have a dog to do it, it kind of gets you to want to go out there.
Absolutely.
But if I didn't have a dog to quail hunt, I even going with somebody that had a dog, I mean, it's just
Wouldn't
not
be the same.
It's not the same.
Yep, I can see that.
Not the same. And not that my dogs are perfect, but they please me.
Right. Yeah, and now I keep thinking that too. Like I could take my dog hunting and someone might not like it, but I'm pleased with my dog.
Yeah.
I'm happy with it, and she's happy hunting, and it's just it's worth it. It's totally worth it to see.
I had somebody told me one time, if somebody doesn't like you like your dog, and somebody doesn't like your dog, don't take them back hunting with you.
Right.
And there's a lot of truth to that.
Yep. Yeah, I can see that. What have you learned this year waterfowl hunting?
Well, the biggest thing is the dog stuff. Of course, I did have to spend a little bit of money getting like the marsh blind and working the dog. Growing up, my dad was a waterfowl guy, so I did do a lot of waterfowling years ago when it was really good over at Swan Lake.
Okay.
We were over there every weekend, and I duck hunted quite a bit as a kid. Matter of fact, I'd killed ducks and geese before I even killed a deer.
Really?
Yeah, I was 16 before I killed a deer.
That's neat.
My dad wasn't a deer hunter.
Sure.
But the biggest thing is me learning what I'm supposed to do with this dog, and I bought the marsh blind, and I started immediately working Dolly out of it in my backyard.
Right.
So she was running retrieves out of it. I knew she would stay in it.
That's important.
Yes, it is.
That's something that when I talk about dogs that don't do the best or they're kind of aggravating, can a little bit mess up a hunt, they won't stay. They won't.
Right.
Or they'll creep. They'll get halfway out of the dog blind or something and kind of
spook the bird.
Yep.
It was kind of funny because you talked about your dog. Once it retrieved one bird, it was ready to go get another one. Well, we were hunting in a portable blind that I have the day that we had pretty good success duck hunting, and she'd retrieved a couple. One of the ducks that we'd killed was a gadwall, and of course she was bringing them to me. I was pitching them over the back of the blind, and kind of in the direction of whoever shot it. So if we kind of had a lull, Dolly would leave the blind. She wouldn't go get the other diver ducks, but she would get that gadwall, and she kept bringing it in. I'd pitch it back over, and about 5 minutes later, she'd go out of the blind and get it and bring it back in again. So she had some kind of affection for that gadwall.
Sure.
But
That's funny.
it's just learning them and learning what you want to do. And I'll tell you, with the cold water and everything, even though I hunt them with a hunter with a vest like you do, I didn't know much about that.
Me either.
And I asked people, do you hunt your dogs with a vest? I've seen people that have had black labs that were completely iced up, which I'm like, I don't want to do that to my dog.
Right.
That the dog means too much to me. But the first time that she retrieved a duck out in that ice water in that pit, that's deep water. Mm-hmm. You're like,
oh, it's cold. Yep.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, I hope everything goes okay, because I can't get out there and swim after her.
Sure.
But it was a lot more the learning the aspect about running a retriever, and I've got a lot to learn with that stuff. I've been hunting, we talked about, I've been hunting pointing dogs for a long time, but it seems like you learn something every time you go out with them.
Absolutely. Do you run a collar on her?
Yes, I do.
Shot collar?
Yeah, I run a shot collar, and it's also a GPS collar.
Okay.
The lab is no problem. I know where the lab is most of the time. Yesterday when I was quail hunting with her, at one point she was 70 yards away from me, and I just hollered at her and she came back.
Right.
Not that I don't trust her, but we're still filling a few things out.
Sure.
But with the pointer, there's a lot of times, and it was pretty frustrating without the GPS collar, that you wouldn't know where your dog was at. And if you're not paying attention, you could say, well, last time I saw the dog, it was going this way. Well, invariably, you'll look at your GPS, the dog is over here. They get away from you pretty quick. And they're not running rampant. They're out there hunting, but, they took a piece of terrain and went with it, you know. And so, what's handy about the GPS collar also is that mine notifies me when my dog is on point. So,
really?
Yeah, it kind of buzzes, and you can look down at the icon, and it says, Beatrice is on point. And it points you to the direction and tells you how many yards away the dog is.
No kidding.
Yeah. So
I had no idea that was a thing.
Absolutely.
That's really neat.
Yeah. So, I can control her. I was talking to a guy that's is big into retrievers, and we were talking about with my pointer around home, I can let Dolly out, and she stays right there with me. Well, my pointer, she kind of wants to go visit, and I'm lucky enough that I have, I live at the edge of the city limits, so my dogs can go run. But if I put a collar on Beatrice, and she's 7, she'll stick right around there. And when I holler at her, she'll come back. But the night that I invariably don't put the collar on her is a night of challenge.
Really?
Yeah,
She
absolutely. Knows. And you would think that the dog would be like, okay, I know what I'm supposed to do after 7 years of this.
Sure.
But yeah, no, she's I whistle at her, blow a whistle, she comes with the collar on. But sometimes without the collar, she's a little bit more hesitant.
That just proves
she'll come.
that they're smarter than you.
Yeah,
than you
absolutely.
think sometimes.
So, and my shock collar, I know a lot of people are like, that's really mean. Well, if you have a collar on your dog, you never know when you're going to have a training opportunity. Timber's real laid back. And when I pulled in your driveway, she was ready to see me. You know, some dogs, would be all over you, and you miss a training opportunity, or they see something and they take off running, and when you've got a training collar, you can nick them.
Yep.
And mine actually has a feature that it tones, so I don't.
Mine's got a beep as well.
I just tone her out. Both my dogs, when they hear that tone, it's like, okay, I know what the next step is if I don't come or do what they're supposed to do.
That's exactly right. So I always said, I'm going to do it without a shock collar. I don't want to have a training collar. But I got to where I was training her, and I wanted to discipline her when she was out there at 75 yards. Right. And, there was nothing I could do. And I realized I think this would be a good tool to have.
Right.
And
it's a good correction tool. As long as they know, you can't train a dog with your collar. They need to know the command, and then you reinforce it and correct them when they don't do that.
So there's been 2 places I primarily use my collar. And how she learned this, I don't know. But when she's in her dog blind, she'll get to creeping. She'll get her whole head out. Mm-hmm. And I'm not even having to use the collar now, but I was telling her place, and I'd hit that beeper, and she'd back up, put her head in there. And now I'm not even having to beep her. I'm just telling her to place. Or I could just hit that button, just a beeper, and she'll back right up. And then there's been a couple times where a bird is still alive, and I realize she's not going to get to it. And I can't get her called off just by vocal commands. She's too locked in. She's going after it, and I'll just barely hit her with that shock collar, and it'll spin her around. Yeah, she knows to listen then.
Yeah, and it's important. It's a safety thing.
Yeah, it really is. Exactly. If she gets in something where a goose is way too alive and it's just not going to happen, you got to be able to reach out and touch them.
Yeah, because I really believe that those dogs are, if they know that the game is out there, they're wanting to get to it, and they're going to do everything they can, and you don't want to put them in a bad way. Absolutely.
And I kind of had the fear of that, of just something bad happening, and I felt like having a shock collar helped prevent that.
So it's all good stuff. And I always run when I'm hunting, whether duck or quail hunting, I'm always got a collar on them. Just hunting around roads, you can control them. Sure. You don't want one running out in the road, and things happen. Dolly likes to give chase. If you get a covey of birds up and they fly across the blacktop, she's probably going to go after them.
Sure.
So you just you want to stop that before that happens.
That's right. How much more quail season you got?
Till the 15th.
15th of January.
So I've got a couple places that I haven't hunted yet this year that I'm going to hit. It's talking about being in the 50s this week. Not going to be real conducive late in the day, but I'll probably get out and hunt my dogs a couple times this week early of a morning. Okay. Get out there.
Good deal.
I actually like hunting afternoons. They're probably my favorite time to quail hunt, but I've had just as good luck in morning as I have afternoons. But
right. I'm already excited for duck season next year.
I am too. The big thing with me is I need to find a place pretty close that I don't have to have a place that 150 mallards are dropping in every day, but if you had a place that you could go out and
a couple of retrieves a day,
it'd be perfect.
Would make it worth it.
Yeah, it really would. So something to work on for the off season.
Yep, we got something to work towards. Yeah. Well, it's been good having you on.
Yeah, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
It's always fun talking about dogs and hunting.
Yeah, it is. It's a new world for me.
Yeah.
I've always had dogs, but not dogs that hunt. And
well, you got one now.
It's fun. Yeah, I'm loving it. It's been great.
Yeah.
Everybody, if you're listening, me and Brent appreciate it.
Yep.
I appreciate you coming on talking about this stuff. It's been fun.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you next time, guys.